Hi, I'm Rebecca and welcome to this Knit and Chat with me, the Creabea. So hello and welcome. I'm Rebecca, I'm a knitter based in Edinburgh and I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm just doing a bit of a knit and chat. I have a bit more time on my hands in September, and so I thought I would do a little bit extra content because I love filming, and so this is one of those bonus episodes. It's not quite a podcast, there's not going to be an update on projects, it's just sitting down, having a knit, and talking through, I got some questions over on Instagram, so I thought I'd just have a chat with you, if that's okay. It is a very, very grey day here in Edinburgh. This week, all week has been pretty grey, very rainy, and it's been amazing. It's been such a nice sort of taste into autumn and the colder months, and all I've wanted to do is get cosy and listen to the rain and knit. And I've done quite a lot of both of those things. I've got a hot drink in my new mug. It is coffee with some oat milk, but I just made it so it's going to be too hot to drink. And I've got a project to work on in this cute neat bag. I got it from my sister for my birthday. It's from Elizabeth Scarlett, who make things like makeup bags and pouches, and this is the maxi pouch, and I got it because it was on sale. Well, I sent it to my sister said, what would you like for your birthday? And I said, how about this? Even better because it's on sale. I am working on a work in progress. I don't really have much in the way of details for it yet, but it's looking like this. And I just joined in the round last night, or maybe this morning, I think last night. And it's a perfect project because I can just sit and knit and I don't really have to worry about looking or staying on track or counting my rounds. It's using two different fibres. This is the Galana Arvetta in the colour Caramel, and this is Kid Silk Mohair from Drops in the colourway Almond. And every time I think about these together, I think the fabric is really stunning. But I think of this as making like a really nice like nut brittle because it's caramel and almond together. So it's going to be a very tasty sweater when it's finished. And I'm wearing my Stockholm sweater from Petite Knit, which I just love because when I think about getting cozy, this is one of the sweaters I want to pull out. So I posted on Instagram if anyone has some questions or anything they want me to chat about, and so everything kind of fell into a couple of categories, mostly like life outside of knitting. Is there such a thing? So like what I do for work and how do I end up doing what I do for work. A lot of questions about Edinburgh and Scotland and places to visit, but also like the knitting community here. And then some questions about knitting and like my experiences and projects. So I thought I could go through in that order. The first one of the questions was how old I am. I'm 28. I turned 28 a few weeks ago. Exactly 2 weeks ago today, is that right? I'm a Virgo, and I feel strange that I'm in my late 20s. My delightful little brother gave me a card that said happy 30th just to make me feel nice and young. So yeah, I guess a brief rundown of the last decade of my life. Buckle up. I studied law here in Edinburgh. I studied Scottish law at undergraduate, and in my third year in Scotland you study for 4 years for most of your degrees. So for my third year I did an exchange programme and I went to study in the Netherlands, and it pretty much changed my life. It feels weird to say that now that I'm back in Edinburgh, but it definitely changed me a lot as a person. I really enjoyed it. It's where I learned to speak Dutch. I went like full Dutchy. I joined a sorority out there and I learned Dutch, and I really found myself. Like it was a real I think before that I was quite uptight and not very relaxed and a bit, I don't know, not obsessive, I'm still quite obsessive, but I really learned a lot about slowing down and enjoying myself and relaxing and doing it more chilled out from the Dutchies, which I really enjoyed. And I loved it so much that when I graduated from Edinburgh, so I came back in a 4th year and then I went back out to the Netherlands to do a master's degree. So I did a master's degree in European law and market integration, which is something I've not had to use since I graduated, unsurprisingly. But I really went back for the experience because I just loved the Netherlands. And a lot of my friends, like when I went out for my 3rd year, a lot of my friends were just starting their 1st year of uni. So they were out there and they were studying and it was really great. I definitely have missed seeing them over the last couple of years of the pandemic. And a trip back out will be pretty high on my to-do list, I think, for the rest of this year. And then when I left university, in my last year of university, I'd been quite heavily involved in a student organisation called Isaac, which is like an international youth organisation. And every country has like a national team. So I left the Netherlands and then came to the UK to join the UK national team. So that was a lot of fun. I did that for 2 years. Again, I learned so much. It's a bit like running your own business for a year or like getting to be the CEO of a little mini company for a year, along with a group of other young people who have no idea what they're doing. And it was intense, but it was a lot of fun. And I got to travel a lot. At one point, I'd been to 12 countries in 12 months, which was a huge, like, I don't know, for someone like us, like my mid-20s, living in London, jet setting everywhere. It was amazing. It was just, I just knew people all over the world and I loved it. And then that's quite fixed terms. So I did that for 2 years and then my term came to an end and then I was left at this like crossroads, like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to be a lawyer. That's about all I know. And so I ended up starting working in a startup as a project manager because a lot of people who'd been in the organisation went on to do the same thing. So like it was quite an established path, let's say. So I joined as a project manager and then quickly moved into products, mostly because I was put into a team that didn't have enough resources and they were doing a lot of like discovery, and then I ended up doing some discovery and then I ended up being a product manager, which is amazing. So I got a lot of questions about what it means to be a product manager. It definitely depends a lot on where you are and what you do, but I always think of it as being like when you travel abroad and you've got one of those like square converter plugs that you put in the socket, and it has like a UK plug and a US plug and an EU plug, and like they're all in the same little block. That block is a product manager. And so that they can facilitate like all the conversations between the users and the business and the tech side, really. That's about it. There's more to it, and sometimes it can be quite technical. Currently I'm working with a lot of like API products, which it was interesting because when I first started in product management, I really almost felt like when I first started learning Dutch, in that I really had no idea. I was just so confused. I was like, this is not a language to me. I don't know what anyone's saying. I'm not following any of it. And then it was interesting because I recently got a new job, and a lot of my interviews, there were quite a lot of technical questions, and I was amazed by myself by how many technical things I could answer. I was like, wait, what? This is me? So that was really interesting because I suddenly had all this technical knowledge I didn't really know I had, which was quite nice. So I'm currently finishing up a working notice period, and I'll start my new job at the beginning of October, which I'm excited for. It's always a bit nerve-wracking starting a new job, like not knowing the company culture, not knowing what anyone's like. It's also a startup, so that will be fun. I got to put in like my order for new home office equipment today, which is exciting because you feel like you're getting to do some shopping. So I've got things like just my new laptop, but also like a desk stand, like a laptop stand, and a new like desk chair and stuff. The things that you get excited about in your late 20s. So yeah, I start there then. So I think I've got some reading to do beforehand. I need to get up to scratch, but for now I'm just not worrying about it too much. And I'll make sure to put some time aside for some preparation closer to the time. I work fully from home, and I have done since I joined the company I'm in now. They have offices, but they're super open to people working from home, and the new company is a remote first company. I was really worried when I was looking for a new job that I might not find somewhere else I could be remote, and obviously we chose to move back to Edinburgh not that long ago, like less than a year ago. So there's not such a big tech scene here in Edinburgh as there is in London, and I panicked a little bit and thought, oh goodness, like have I really messed up here? Like I want to leave my company and I don't know if there's a new place I can go. But surprisingly there were quite a few options for remote working, so I love it. I don't think that I will go back to being office based for the foreseeable future. Like maybe something later in life I want to do, but definitely not not my next job. I just think it gives me so much time. Obviously there's no commuting, but there's also like no time to get ready because you're just at home, so you can just wake up and like, I don't know, my comfy clothes are usually like joggers or leggings and a jumper or a t-shirt, and that's fine. Like that's something I can do. And I could travel and work from just about wherever I want to work, which is always a big benefit. And I just find it lets me live a lot outside of work. I can do things like put lunch on, or put dinner on, and see, one of our favourite things to cook is black lentil dal, and it takes quite a long time to cook, but that's fine. Like I'm working from home, I just put it on at 11 o'clock and it maybe needs like half an hour of attention throughout the day, but I can just do that because I'm working from home. So I really love that. My boyfriend also works from home. He also works in tech. He is a software engineer, which is also one of the questions. So we like have lunch together every day and do the crossword, the New York Times crossword every day. So yeah, that's been really nice. And I think I'll stay remote for the foreseeable future. I just think as well, companies that are willing to have employees work remotely generally, and I don't think this is like a blanket statement, but generally are quite flexible with their employees. So if you say like I need to start early today and finish early today, or like I don't know, it's really sunny outside, so I'm gonna go take a walk and I'll be back at my desk in half an hour, or like, oh, something's come up and I need to take some holiday in 2 days time. There are a lot of companies that really wouldn't allow those policies, but I do find that with companies that are remote working, they're much more chilled out and like let you do that, which is really nice. So I'm excited for my new job. I've got, I think, at least a week's holiday before then. Hopefully we're gonna do a little bit of holidaying somewhere. We only have like 5 days, and of course I managed to time those 5 days exactly when the Cargill sweater is coming out. So on the Sunday, we're taking like Sunday, I think the 25th, we're taking some pictures for the Cargill, and then on the Monday the test finishes, and then on the Friday the pattern comes out. So I've got quite a lot of actual admin to do that week, and we're considering going like camping for 4 days, so I need to break that news to the Creabea boyfriend that I actually going to need some internet. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, I think. And hopefully just be a bit organised before then. And yeah, so I think that covers most of the questions about working. I've lived in quite a few places. I lived in the Netherlands for 3 years, and then London for 3 years, and I'm back in Edinburgh. There were a lot of questions about Edinburgh and about Scotland. I've been back we moved December last year, so pretty much 9 months now. which feels so strange to say. Like I feel like we moved here a couple months ago. I can't believe it's already been almost a year. Edinburgh is an amazing city. It's really, really, really great. We live in Leith, which I think is as a student, I would have turned my nose up and been like, oh, Leith. Because it's definitely not as, it's a bit of a rougher area sometimes. But I think there's a real sense of community here, which I really love, and I hadn't expected as much. But I find that everyone that I know, when I was saying, oh, we're moving to Leith, they'd be like, oh, I love Leith. Oh, Leith's amazing. And I didn't really get it, but I can say now living here, I get it. We have a lot of amazing like community places. There's a local bookshop, there are also like really nice local bakeries, lots of great food places. It's just, it's really, really lovely. So I'm really enjoying being back in Edinburgh. I'm mostly enjoying being back close to family. I have quite a big family. My parents split when I was quite young, and they've both got kids. So I technically have 6 siblings, 2 half and 4 step, but they all kind of feel just like brothers and sisters to me. And so my oldest brother has moved into the city a few weeks ago, and then my oldest sister has also moved in for university. I'm like the oldest, so they're both younger than me. But it feels kind of weird now. I've got family, just like I could walk. I met my sister for lunch this week, and I could like walk to her place. My brother lives like 2 minutes away, not quite, 15 minutes away. But that feels very strange, especially after being properly away for so long. And then I probably like would go out to see my parents every couple of weeks, which is quite nice. So that's been really lovely. I always joke that Edinburgh felt like home, so it's strange now that it actually is home. But I would definitely, if you're coming to Scotland, I would definitely recommend a couple of nights in Edinburgh. There's so much to see, but it's also just such a beautiful city, and I think Edinburgh does this time of year incredibly well. It is like when it's all grey and rainy and cold, like this is when Edinburgh really shines. It's a very gothic city, I think, especially in the old town. So yeah, I'd recommend it. I got some questions about the knitting community in Edinburgh, and there was one that was about whether or not knitting had helped me like relax a bit more into the city and to make some friends, and it definitely has. I go to a weekly knit night, which started years and years ago and then quietened down over COVID, and then is starting to pick back up again with some new people, and it's just really nice. Like, it's a very relaxed group, but they meet every Monday, and yeah, it's just really lovely. So it's been nice. Like, I've not gone every single week. There's sometimes things that pop up and whatnot, but it's nice to have that like fixed thing in my calendar, like, oh, okay, it's a Monday night, off the knit night, and that was for me really great. And it also gave me a lot of confidence moving to a new place, knowing like, okay, I'm a knitter, so I can make some knitting friends, because that's a thing. Like, if I find a knit night, then it's like an easy in. I guess it must be similar if you play a sport, which I don't play any sports, but if you go somewhere and you think, oh, I love to play rugby, then you could find a local rugby club and play with them. And so that's very that was what knitting was for me, like a very easy way in to make new friends, which I really love. Oh, is that like the perfect temperature? I love coffee. I have tea. This is also a question: tea or coffee? I have tea every morning when I wake up, like my first drink of the day, and then we have coffee. We're a bit snobby about coffee, actually. Like, we have a coffee subscription, and we have a couple of different brewing methods. But usually we have, like, when we moved in, actually, our moving in gift to ourselves was a coffee grinder, like an electric one, because we were both so sick of using a hand grinder. So we have coffee in the morning, which I think I like the ritual of it almost as much as the coffee itself. And then usually we'll have like a second coffee or an afternoon coffee. And I look forward to it. We actually bought decaf beans recently because I was so Like there were so many evenings where all I wanted was a coffee, but it was like 10 p.m. and I couldn't justify drinking a coffee. Although I don't really know if coffee at this point is a bit of a hit or a miss whether or not it impacts me. But yeah, I bought decaf beans so I can have evening coffees now, which is a bit ridiculous. But yeah, no, Edinburgh's amazing in terms of knitting. I think there's another knit night or craft night run by the team behind Zakami Yarns, but I think it's on a Thursday. I've never been, but a couple of people who come to my knit night have also been to that one. And maybe there's a big group that I'm missing, but as far as I know, those are the two big knitting groups. I say big, there are like 12 of us on a Monday. But yeah, it's really lovely. There are 3 knitting shops here. I'm hoping to do a tour in the next couple of weeks at some point. There is Ginger Twist, which is my closest. It is a tiny little treasure trove. It honestly, like, I think some people have wardrobes bigger than Ginger Twist, but it's stacked to the ceiling, so these high ceilings, and it's just completely full up with yarn. And they have their own hand-dyed stuff, and then a lot of really great local breeds. And then there's Kathy's Knits, which I've only been to once because the opening hours are just so tricky if you're working. I think they're open like 10 till 4 Monday to Saturday, so I can basically never go before or after work. So I can only go on a Saturday 10 till 4, and then if you've got plans on a Saturday. So I've only been once, but they stock some really great natural wool. So they have JC Rennie and Blacker yarns and Jameson and Smith, like a lot of those really good, like, affordable British breeds. And then there's Bee Inspired Firebreads, which is over in Marchmont, which is where I lived when I was a student in the city, and it is like a chaos. I don't know if it's still this way. I think when they were doing a lot of online orders over COVID, it was just easier to just have them picking out stuff from the stock. So when I went to visit, there was just stock everywhere. But it was nice. Like it was quite fun to dig through, like, what will they have under this pile of yarn? And they have some really interesting commercial stuff, like Aesire and Camera Rose and Vilcalana, like a bit more of your Scandi commercial brands. So yeah, there are a couple of knitting shops. And then of course there used to be Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I think the last one was 2019. I didn't knit then, so I have never attended Edinburgh Yarn Festival, which is a bit sad. Because I watch some of my favourite podcasters and they talk about how they attended EYF, and I just think, like, oh my goodness, they were in Edinburgh? That's insane. Which is very cool. There are a couple of bigger yarn festivals. I think there are becoming more as well. So there's Perth Festival Yarn, which I think is now the biggest in Scotland, and it's tomorrow. So excited. It's really started to kick in now. I think because some people were posting pictures on Instagram of Autumn Unravel, I got excited about a yarn festival, so that's tomorrow. And then on Sunday I'm going on both days. And then on October there's Glasgow School of Yarn, again I've never been to. And then I think that's it for this year, but there's one in the Borders that's starting up again. I think they had the first one, they've got a second one announced. And there's Bannock Yarn, which is in Stirling, again, Central Belt, which has been announced for next year as well. So I think that we have, 2 right now, and there are 2 more coming, which is a pretty big deal. It's quite exciting. And yeah, I think there are just more and more people knitting now. Like, people are just getting into it more, which is always great, because that just means more yarn shops and more festivals and things. A few people asked for some recommendations about visiting Scotland and what to do and see here. I think a great resource is the NC 500. It is I don't know what the word is. It's like a route around all the north of Scotland, which is 500 miles, which you can drive. And whilst I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing all the stops, I think it'd be a really great resource to see some of the cool stuff that Scotland has to offer. And a little bit, like a bit less touristy. It's still obviously a very popular tourist route, but it's not quite as many, there aren't quite as many, I don't know, it's not just going to say like Edinburgh Castle, Holyrood House, like it's going to have more things on it than that. It's like great beaches and some really cool things to see. So I definitely would recommend, especially, I'd always recommend if you're visiting Scotland, hire a car, because there's so much to see outside of Edinburgh and Glasgow. And trains are okay, but they're not great, and like they'll get you to the city centres of places, but a lot of the great places are a bit more out of the cities. I love the west coast of Scotland. I'm hoping that's where we're going to end up on our couple of days little trip. We'll be doing some island hopping. My grandparents sailed. They both, what was a little fly? My grandparents both retired early and bought a boat, because what else do you do? So they bought a boat when they were in like the early 50s, and sailed a lot. So before that they sailed a lot around Scotland, and then they bought a boat in the States and then sailed her down the coast. Like, so when I was 2, I went to New England because they had the boat there. I don't remember a single bit of it. And then they sailed on the coast, and then they went to the Caribbean, and then they crossed the Atlantic, and then they spent a couple of years sailing in the Med, and then they brought the boat called Capercaillie back to the west coast. And so we did a lot of sailing holidays when I was younger, and went to a lot of like the small islands, so like Mull and Iona and Gia, Tobermory, like a lot of really amazing places. So that holds a very special place in my heart, of summer holidays when I was younger. And so yeah, I would definitely recommend some island hopping, and I'm hoping we're only gonna have like 4 days, but I'm hoping that maybe you can fit a couple of days on an island there, or I don't know what, we'll find out what. So yeah, I think that's my recommendations for Scotland. I don't think I have any more. If anyone, I'm sure there are other people watching who are Scottish, and if you've got some great recommendations for things off the beaten track. I'd also recommend all of Skye. I think it's amazing. It is pretty touristy though, but my mum grew up just outside of Skye, and I've got a lot of family there, and I love visiting, and it's just a beautiful place. 2 years ago, when I left my charity job, this like student organisation, and was job hunting, I think I had like 6 weeks where I wasn't working, and I was having a bit of a quarter life crisis and didn't really know what to do with my life. And me and my brother and my sister drove to Skye for like 3 days, I think. And I remember we went to the fairy pools, which are like inland waterfall and pools that you can swim in. And we were not planned for it at all. And my sister were just like, screw it. So we were just we didn't have like proper swimsuits or anything. We were wearing like t-shirts. And that was such a magical place to be. We were there right at the end of a day. It had been a really hot day, so the water was really like refreshing but not icy cold, and it was just absolutely perfect. So yeah, I really loved being in Skye. It was pretty great. So I'd also recommend, yeah, basically anywhere on the west coast. Despite me living on the east coast, I'd recommend all of the west coast. Yeah, I think that's everything for work and Scotland. My last category was knitting. No way, knitting. So there were a couple of questions. One of them I actually brought some stuff for. So one of them was my favourite, or like my most and least successful knits. I think this sweater I'm wearing is one of my most successful, because I reach for it all the time, and I think that's probably a sign of a successful knit, which is interesting because a couple of things. I pointed out before, I did something funny on this pickup, and so it kind of bubbles a little bit here. Yeah, and then when I first finished this, I despised the collar. It's got a bit of elastic in it, but the collar is really deep, and I just couldn't get it to sit right. And I tried a couple of different methods of elastic, and I couldn't work out what to do to make it fit. And I thought, oh, I've wasted so much time knitting this. And I think now I'm more comfortable in it, but I was knitting it on like 3.25mm needles at the time, which is I think like the smallest needles I'd used to date. So it felt like a labour of love, but I I do love this sweater. I pull it out a lot. I don't know if it is the shape of it or if it's the yarn combination. The shape, we'll find out soon because I'm going to cast another one of these on in khaki. But the yarn is alpaca and mohair. So the alpaca, this is so, it's 100% alpaca, it's the drops alpaca, so it's really silky and soft. And the mohair is the tin silk mohair, which has got some wool content in it. So it's just like drape and cozy, and it is a little scratchy. I'm not wearing a t-shirt under this and I can feel it. Like, it's not bothering me, but I know it's there. My other very successful knit, in my humble opinion, is my September sweater number 11 from My Favourite Things Knitwear, which is this one. It's super boxy and just delicious. Like, I really, really love this. I knit it with one strand of this has got almost no itch. One strand of Cascade 220, which I really think is incredible. Such a good yarn. And one strand of Filcanatilia, which I think mohair. So this is a real, it feels so good. I think this has got less of an itch than this, but I could be wrong. It fits really, really well, and I wore it quite a lot last year, so I'm excited to wear it again this year. I find that I don't go outside that much. Like, I do go outside, but I think it's tricky because I sew as well, and so I want things that I can wear, because obviously I work from home. Like, I want things that I'll enjoy wearing at home as well as out places, because maybe I don't go out all that often, or like get dressed up all that often. Like, knit night is a bit of an exciting moment on a Monday, because I'm like, oh, I'll put on some real clothes. And then like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm usually just back into jockeys for 3 days, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we go out and do things. So I find that, like, with this, I could totally wear this around the house. We keep the house quite, not cold, but like, we don't really keep the heating on high and anything, so I can wear like a warm sweater. But with the high neck of this, I do find it can be hard to wear indoors, so it's very much like an outerwear piece. But I think that's okay. But yeah, I love it. One thing I did notice is that it is starting to felt a little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I don't even know where this is. I guess this must be on the front, like here. It's right on the front under the arm. Yeah, you can see a little bit like this patch here, which makes me a little bit sad because it's not an incredibly old sweater. Like, it was really just knit last year. So the fact that it's all kind of, this bit's felted a little bit, makes me a little bit sad, but also like, it's well loved and I'm wearing it, so is that the end of the world? I don't really know. Probably should debubble this soon. But yeah, so these two are my two favorite sweaters, which is ridiculous because they're both so simple and so straightforward, and there's nothing, like, there were techniques, of course, but I've made much more complicated projects. So it's a shame that the ones that I like the most are some of my most simple ones, but there we go. My least successful project is not that old actually, it's this cardigan. I made this cardigan this summer, or I think it would be like springtime. It's cardigan number 5 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I just don't like it. I just don't. There's not any shaping in this, and I think when it's really oversized it kind of works, but I think this one is less oversized than the pattern called for, and it just means that it's not, like, the back just hangs horribly. I just don't think it suits me at all, and I think it's too short. I don't think I had enough yarn. Yeah, all those reasons. So I think at the end of this year, my plan is probably in January to do a bit of a clear out of my wardrobe in general, but especially my handmade wardrobe. I'd like to do like a year in review. What's everything I've knit this year? What have I worn? And at that point, like, I've got some things that I made in like March time, but it's not been really cold enough to wear for a few months. So I'd like to be able to talk about what I've worn and whether I like them, and then review whether I'll keep them or not, and then probably just pop them up for sale, but not like, probably just to cover the cost of the yarn. And to look into how I'll do that, maybe Ko-Fi, or maybe and then whatever's left over maybe just put on eBay or on Vinted, like a secondhand app. And I think this will be something that I'll send, I mean, I even might ask my little sisters. I feel this is something my little sisters would wear, but I just, it's just not for me. And I think I could rip out the yarn and use it again, but I'm just over it. Like, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's super nice soft yarn. It's very squishy, but I just don't wear it. The fit isn't great. So, and the colour, I'm not crazy about the colour either. So lots of things made that an unsuccessful project, in my humble opinion. And another specific question was about this sweater, which is my Maya sweater. This was one of the first things I made, and it was definitely one of the first things I made, first things I made as a podcaster. It's made in Letlopi, I think. Sorry, it's been in my wardrobe and all these little dust mites come out every time I take out wool and fly around my head. They're not actually dust mites, they're just like actually bits of dust. There are not flies flying on my head. At least I don't think there are. This sweater I made almost this time last year, it must have been, I think. And I think it's lovely. It's a bit scratchy. I'm gonna have to wear a t-shirt underneath it, I think. This is the scratch, like this is the peak of, like, if you can tolerate this, you can tolerate anything. This is a free pattern from it's from Helene Magnuson, who's an incredible designer, and this pattern is free, but it is a pattern for a top down, maybe I can find the pattern actually. Maya cardigan. Oh yeah, that was it, it came up right there. This is what it looks like. So it's a bottom up steeped cardigan, and I've made a cardigan version, but this is my sweater version. And I made the sweater version first, and I made it top down, and somebody asked me how I made it top down, and to be perfectly honest, I just reversed the pattern. Which is not useful at all, but maybe it is. So I think they get you to cast on the bottom and cast on the arm separately, and then knit up and then join the arms, and then you decrease through the yoke, through the colourwork chart. And I can talk, this is a free pattern, so I'm talking about it quite openly. And then you do some short rows, and then you decrease, and then you do the ribbing, and then you cast off. Just did the opposite. So I cast on first. I was a bit confused with the short rows, but I just counted the total number of short rows that it required me to do, and then I think just honestly fudged it a little bit from there. I'd done short rows in my no frill sweater, so I think I maybe just copied how those short rows were done for the number of short rows this sweater called for. You can see them there. And I've had no issues with the fit, like it's been completely fine. And then I worked the colourwork chart outwards, so instead of starting at the bottom working up, I started at the top and worked down. And where the signs were for decreasing a stitch, I just increased a stitch. So I used lifted increases because I think they're the most invisible increase. And then, yeah, I finished the yoke, and I think it tells you, like, you do you attach the sleeves and arms, you knit one round, and then you do the chart. So I just knit one round and then split for sleeves. Again, the same way you would, like, it tells you maybe stitches are meant to be on the sleeves at the top, so I put that many on hold, cast one onto the arm and left the body, and then just knit the rest of it plain. And did the chart again on the sleeves. There is an interesting thing with this pattern that the sleeve, it tells you to do decreases, but not in the, doesn't, how to explain this? The chart for the yoke, that's the word, the chart for the yoke has the decreases marked. You have to do decreases for the sleeves if you want to continue the decreases evenly down the sleeve, but they're not marked. So you have to kind of fudge it, but I just didn't. I just did all my decreases before, which I think when you're wearing it, you cannot tell. But I know that Fernanda from Little Monkeys and Me has done a significantly better job of explaining this, so I would recommend her old podcast episodes for how to do this. But yeah, I love it. I'm hoping to get some more wear out of this year. This one and my red one. My red one is the cardigan. It feels very festive, which is the main reason it doesn't get worn very often, because it's red and white and it's this design, so it feels like it's a Christmas jumper. But yeah, we'll see. I can honestly, like, it's been scratching me through my leggings, just holding it there. Interestingly, my grey one is much softer than my red one because apparently when you wear knitwear, the oils from your skin help to soften the knit, and so that is it will soften faster if you wear next to skin. Obviously some people can't wear next to skin, completely fine, but if you can, apparently that helps soften faster. So yeah. My last couple of questions were about beginner knitting, so needle recommendations for a beginner knitter and pattern recommendations and yarn recommendations. Needles is the easiest one. I got an interchangeable set of Knit Pro Zing from Amazon when I first started knitting, and I still use those needles to this day. I have a set of Chowgoos which are on their way to me somewhere in the post. There is a post strike happening this week, so I think they're being delivered on Monday. But up until this point, I've never had another set of interchangeables. I think an interchangeable set makes the most sense for a beginner because it's the most cost efficient way. You get a lot of sizes, you get a lot of needles. You don't need to buy a different size for every set. If your gauge changes, like, that's easy to deal with. So yeah, I think that is most cost effective. And I'm pretty sure that the Zing comes with maybe 7 or 8 needle sizes, and yeah, 7 or 8 needle sizes, and they are not expensive. It's like maybe, I think it's under £40, which I think is great. What I then did is I just added to that set, so every time I needed a new needle I would just buy an individual one. So I think probably a long time I've spent more money on needles than I needed to. But I found it really helpful because I've always just bought more Knit Pro. So for example, right now it's a superwash wool, so it's very slippy. So I'm using the Knit Pro Symphony, which is the wooden ones, yeah. And they fit on the same cables, and I've got a handful of Knit Pro Symphony, so I just find that really easy. It was a very easy just add-on set. They're also available quite readily in places like Amazon, so if you don't have a local yarn shop or that's a bit intimidating, you can just get them somewhere that's easy to order from. So yeah, that would 100% be my recommendation. I think there are other great sets out there, but that feels like the most accessible. There was I've mentioned on the podcast before that there's a new lady at our knit night, and she just got her first needle set, and she got those ones, and I just think it's the best option. In terms of yarn, I think if you can and if you want to, use 100% wool, but use use 100% natural fibre. Again, this lady at Knit Night, she started knitting, and I recommend a drop of Lima to her, and I think that is a great suggestion. It's well priced. I think it's the big thing, like, you can spend a lot of money on yarn, but I think as a beginner, like, you don't want to be, I think maybe we've not all been there, I've been there where I've spent a lot of money on craft supplies to get into it, and I'm all about making knitting as accessible as possible. So there are some beautiful fabrics out there, but like, don't start with like a 100-gram skein of fingering weight hand-dyed yarn. Buy a couple of balls of drops Lima, which is alpaca and wool, which is super soft against the skin and easy to knit with, and it's quite a chunky yarn and is not expensive and has quite nice colours. And then for projects, I think the best thing to start with is probably something that you know you'll wear. Not necessarily a sweater, but I found this with sewing as well. I've taught some friends to sew, and we now, like, I've not done it for ages, but when friends did ask me to help them teach them to sew, I always made wrap skirts with them because I could tailor it to fit them, and it, like, whatever their style, they could wear a wrap skirt. So like, it could be a mini wrap skirt, it could be a midi or maxi length wrap skirt, it could be like floral, it could be all one colour, it could be black, it could be linen, like any style they had, they could make it fit. And what would then happen is if we could spend a bit of time choosing the right fabric, they actually really wore the final thing, and they felt so much better about sewing because they'd made something they love. And I think that's the same with knitting. Like, if you're gonna knit a scarf, don't knit a scarf. Baseline, just don't knit a scarf because it takes forever, and then you drop a stitch and you can never fix it. So yeah, I think a hat is a great tip. Pearl Soho have a lot of great hat patterns that are free. You might have to learn to do decreases, but again, like, you're gonna have to learn to do them at some point, so you may as well learn now. So yeah, like a nice beanie, it won't take you ages. I think that's the things. Quick, fairly chunky needles, like probably a Aran weight or above, and just using some basic techniques. That's my suggestion. So I would probably suggest, to wrap that up, beginners, Knit Pro, Zing interchangeable needles, drops Lima, and something like the Pearl Soho Classic Rib Beanie, or any of there's actually just like a hat for all the family, which is more just plain knitting instead of the ribbing, and that is perfect. And if you can, find a great local knit night, because it's so sweet. This lady that's come to her knit night, she's knitting her first sweater now. She knit a cowl in the first 2 weeks, and then she knit a shawl in the next 2 weeks, and I think this is like her 6th week, maybe more than that, maybe her 7th or 8th week. And she split her sleeves this week on her first sweater. She's knitting a no-frill sweater. And like, it was completely crowdsourced. Like, I recommended the pattern and the yarn. And then I missed a week. I was doing a lot of job interview prep, so I missed a couple of weeks. And in 1 week, somebody helped her with the short rows, and then she's been knitting away. And then on Monday, she was hoping to get to the sleeve split during knit night so we could show her, but she didn't get there, so she was meeting someone for coffee the next day to help her. I just thought that was so sweet. So yeah, if you are a beginner, if there are listeners in your local area, pop them a message and say, do you know if there's a local knit night or like your local yarn store, I think would be a great tip for that. So yeah, wow, I thought it was going to be like a 20-minute episode. And of course I've been sitting here chatting for almost 45 minutes. I've got quite a lot of knitting done actually. I have done maybe like 1.5 inches under the sleeves, which is nice. I think I'll be taking this with me on the train tomorrow to Perth, because again, it's just knit round until I'm bored. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll have a regular episode next week updating on all the different things. I've also got a tester call coming next week, I think. I'm feeling confident about that actually. I got my second round of edits sent off yesterday, so I'm feeling good that that'll be next week. And yeah, this weekend I'm just going to enjoy the yarn festival and soak it all up. And yeah, that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't, just don't tell me. But if you did, I'd love to leave me a comment below and tell me what you think about it. And if you've got any more questions, feel free to leave them there and I'll try and get back to them. Either directly or in another knit and chat at some point in the future. It was really great hanging out with you. I hope you're enjoying some cozy time, and I'm going to go off and finish my coffee and keep knitting. See you next week. Bye!